Well, after weeks and weeks of bureaucracy and paperwork and running all over town, I finally have all of the paperwork sorted for the F100. We are good to go. Then inspection and everything went perfectly. I did need an engine, so putting that small block in there did exactly what it was supposed to do. So we are finally ready to start wrenching on this thing. As you probably saw from the title and thumbnail of this video, we bought a donor car. Let me show it to you. As you can see, we just drug her home from the auction. I'm gonna pull the tarp off in a second. Spoiler alert, I did buy an enclosed race trailer. We'll be doing some projects and stuff on that in the future, but forget about that for now. But let's pull this tarp off. And you can see this beauty. So this is a 2017 GT Mustang. I'll give you a full walk around of this thing. So like I said, 2017 GT Mustang, which means we have the Gen 2 Coyote V8 in here, 430, 440 horsepower stock, something like that. Should be plenty for this old truck. Obviously very upgradable should we decide to do that. This is an auto, 6-speed auto in this one. I went back and forth over and over and over again about whether or not I wanted to go manual or automatic on this build. And I decided I was gonna wait till the perfect donor car came up, and whatever transmission that had, I was gonna run with it. Also, automatic Mustangs do sell for cheaper than manuals. And this is a shop truck, daily driver. I have fun manual cars. Automatic, I think, honestly kind of fits the build a little bit better than a manual would. So it looks smushed, but not horrible from this angle. On this side, you're gonna see why I was able to afford this thing. Yeah, she took a nice big old hit right here in the driver's door. So for me, this is perfect because this is a non-repairable title car, meaning it is too far damaged to ever be put back on the road. Fine by me, all I want is the drivetrain. So I will be able to take the engine, the transmission, and the complete IRS out of this thing. So we're gonna have full independent rear suspension from this car all under the F100. I'll get more into detail on that when the time comes, but we'll be able to utilize a lot of these parts. This looks more damaged than it is. Really, it's just one upper control arm and a cracked knuckle. The rest of the IRS is perfectly fine. No bent arms or frames or diff damage or anything like that. It's like I said, it looks a little bit worse than it is. The most important part is under here. Yeah, that is a very dusty 5-liter Coyote. I have the Camaro moved into kind of long-term storage, so we have the shop space available. I want to pull it over to the garage. Let's pressure wash out that engine bay so it's nice and clean for us to work on. Then we'll see about getting this thing off the trailer and into the garage. And just like that, with 2 minutes of pressure washing, we are much more presentable. So one of the reasons why I wanted to get as complete of a car as I possibly could is because, if you remember from my previous videos, my goal with this truck is for it to run and drive like a modern vehicle. I want there to be absolutely no compromises when it comes to the driving experience. And to pull that off, I want to utilize as much of these factory components as I possibly can. That means we're going to utilize the factory ECU and part of the factory engine harness. I'll go more into detail probably in its own video because that's the whole thing I've been looking into. The factory air intake, ideally TBD, the factory radiator and cooling fans, all of that stuff. I want to utilize all of the factory components that have had tons of like R&D and development, that instead of me trying to replace it with an aftermarket piece with unknown quality and really not proven, all of this stuff is designed to run this engine. So I want to keep as much of that as possible. Enough jibber jabbering. I'll go into a ton of detail on that in future videos. For now, I'm going to go through, remove all of this plastic, cut away these airbags, just make this into a workable area so my buddy can come and program us a key. I got the bulk of the glass and junk removed from the kind of driver's area. Also went ahead and removed most of the windshield that I could that was hanging down in the way. So this Mustang was technically labeled as biohazard, which can mean a couple of different things. Worst case scenario, bodily stuff from the accident. Luckily, that does not seem to be the case here. This looks like because the windows were broken out, this has been rained in and it has some mold on the inside. So I am going to wear gloves. I'm also going to continue to wear my respirator when I'm inside the car, just because I don't want to breathe that mold in. So what I want to do now is I'm going to hook up a jump box to the battery and see if we get any sort of life out of this thing, because I don't want my buddy to come over, waste his time trying to program a key on a car that won't even turn on at all. And this thing is pretty damaged up by this left side kind of cluster area. That is where he needs to access like the OBD2 port, that kind of stuff. So yeah, I'm going to plug in the jump box, go in there, hit the start stop button, see if we get anything at all. I'm not even sure if these power to life at all without a key anyway, but we are going to try it. 3, 2, 1. Ooh. Okay. Okay, I heard some Ford noises from the inside. That's a good sign. Ooh, we got headlights are trying to come on. The flashers are trying to come on. We have some signs of life. Oh, I'm hearing Ford noises. Oh, shit, I forgot my respirator. Don't tell my wife. Okay. How do I know if this is enough to do what we need to do? Okay, good news and bad news. Good news, my neighbor said he is pretty confident we'll be able to program this thing with how much it's turning on, but he does need to go get the transponder key from his office probably tomorrow. So bad news is going to delay us a day or two, but he's helping me out, so I'm not too stressed about that. I will wait to put this video out until we have an answer of whether or not it's going to start. I think that'll be a good kind of climax to the video. For now, I'm going to see if I can source an upper control arm and a knuckle for the left rear, because if this thing does start, we'll need that to be repaired for me to be able to drive it off the trailer and into the shop. I don't want to try and drive it as is. We're going to end up pulling an axle out of the diff, or screwing something up by trying to drive it. So let me source that stuff, and then I think I'm going to be kind of dead in the water until he comes back with his programming stuff. So it'll be a second for you guys. It'll be a day or two for me. So I'll see you then. A couple of days later, my neighbor is an absolute legend, programmed me a key. So we confirmed it does turn all the way on to accessory mode and everything, but we have not tried to crank the engine yet. I told him I didn't want to do that until I do a couple of checks. So what we need to do is I want to pull the dipstick, make sure, one, it has oil, two, we can check the condition of the oil and make sure it doesn't have any kind of fluid in it or anything. Since the whole front of this car is very much intact, I do not, fingers crossed, foresee any issues there. What I am a little bit concerned about is I'm not sure if the fuel lines run on the driver's side or the passenger side. Typically in modern cars, they run right along the rocker panel here. If they run on this side, there's a chance we have a severed fuel line. So to check that, I'm thinking I can just turn the key all the way on, let the fuel pump prime a few times, and we can check for leaks before we try and start it. But assuming both of those go well, we're going to see if we can hear this thing run, determine if this was an absolute monumental waste of money or a good investment. Okay. It's got oil. The oil actually doesn't even look half bad. It's still got like an amber color to it, so it's not super black. So maybe we got lucky and this thing is actually decently maintained. I wasn't sure how many miles were on it because we didn't have a key, so we couldn't turn it on all the way. It looks like it's 110,000. We were able to confirm that with the new key. So that's really not too bad for a 7, almost 8-year-old car. So 2017, that actually means that this is not only the newest, but also the lowest mileage car that I own currently, which is kind of funny because it's the one I'm going to be taking apart. Got a battery box on there. Go in here. Oh. Oh. Got radio, we got Ford noises. Oh shit, my door's ajar. service all the things. C manual, low tire. Okay, let me hit it again. All right. Do it one more time. Okay, seems like it's fully primed. Let's check for any wet spots. Here we go, hopefully something. Strange noise, but pretty darn good. Has a Roush cat back. I don't know if I ever mentioned that. So here's what I'm thinking. I'm a little bit too impatient to wait for my parts to come in. So I do have that knuckle and control arm. Should be here in the next couple of days. But I really want to get this thing in the garage and on the lift. It's going to be much easier to replace those parts with this thing in the air. And then now that I know there may or may not be a transmission issue, I'd really like to get underneath this thing and check it out. So what I think I'm going to do is just go ahead and hook the trailer back up to my truck, back it up a little bit, and I'm just going to back this thing into the garage. I can put it on the lift that way. Not ideal for removing the engine, so once I replace that knuckle and stuff, we'll probably pull it out, turn it around, pull it back in forward. But for now, having this thing backed in isn't that big of a deal, so let's see if we can do that. She is in, and that went surprisingly smoothly, other than the fact that it rolled all the way off the trailer nice and smooth while the transmission is supposed to be in park. So that's less than ideal. Yeah, so we definitely got something going on with that. Let's see if we can get this thing in the air. Take a little peek. So engine. Good, oil pan's good. Okay, that's broken. The transmission cross member. I don't see any major fluid or anything coming out. Sorry if this is a terrible angle. I'm trying to look and film at the same time. I mean, the shifter linkage, everything looks fine. The drive shaft is all still in place. I don't see any broken tail housing or anything. It literally just looks like the mount broke. But why would just a broken mount cause it to not work? I was fully expecting to see like a transmission case cracked in half or something down here. I mean, where it meets up with the block and everything is totally fine. All of this looks good. Front suspension looks pretty undamaged, which is cool because I am going to utilize the electric power steering, but I'm not going to utilize anything else on the front suspension. I'll tell you guys more about what I'm doing with that later. So kind of concerning that it doesn't move. So there's the broken control arm I was talking about. And if you can just see on the knuckle, see if I can get it to right, kind of like right where the corner of my flashlight is right there. That is the crack I'm talking about. Rear diff looks dirty, but you know, 110,000 miles, but no cracks, fluid coming out. I mean, the rear axles are still in place. Well, boys and girls, I believe I found our problem. So here's the drive shaft coming out the back of the diff and then running up to the front of the car right there. Look what happens when I rotate the back tire. See how that part of the drive shaft is moving, but that part is not. So whatever is behind this rubber boot, I know it's gonna be really hard to see for you guys, but whatever is behind this guy is no longer connected. So I guess the force of the accident or whatever caused that to shear, which is, I'm gonna call that good news. Considering it's not a major component, I'm going to have a new drive shaft made for this build anyway, because I don't think our drive train length, or whatever the proper term is going to be the same. So not a huge concern, a little bit of a pain because this is going to be harder for me to flip around to pull the engine out, but we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. I can't even begin to state how incredibly relieved I am that this thing is a good donor. This was a huge risk for me, not only monetarily, but just time spent, everything. But the reason why I was able to afford this donor car is for three main reasons. One, because it didn't have a key, the auction house isn't able to verify if the car actually runs or not, so it's listed as unknown. That way hurts the value and what the high bid typically is on an auction. Two, biohazard, people typically don't want to deal with that. Three is non-repairable title. If you wanted to put a car back on the road, obviously you can't start with one that has a non-repairable title. So those three reasons are the reasons why I was able to afford this thing. Similar cars are selling for 2 to 3 times what I paid for this. So yeah, we got very, very lucky, and the fact that it runs is a huge relief. So I appreciate you guys watching. I know it's been a couple of weeks since my last video, trying to get all this figured out. In the next episode, we're going to pull this drivetrain completely out. We're going to pull out the rear suspension, get all of the parts off of this thing that we need so we can officially pull the truck in and get to work. So thanks for watching this video, guys. I'll see you on the next one.